Deciphering the modern Rosetta Stone for the liberal mindset. Here's a most interesting cultural paradox. People who hate sin and then have the unmitigated audacity to love people are said by liberals to be hateful people. Or some others would say they are just people who love morality and implications of a human's free will. Conversely, people who love sin and then have the mitigated audacity to hate people, liberals believe are loving people. Or some others might say that they are just people who hate morality and implications of a human's free will. Understanding that liberal mindset is quite enlightening. One could call it the Rosetta Stone. Without getting too much into the history of the original Rosetta Stone, I'll use the second definition of it according to Merriam-Webster. That is that it means one that gives a clue to understanding. So in the same way that the original Rosetta Stone gave the anthropologists and archaeologists clues to understanding the working languages and culture of the ancient Egyptian, so too does this modern Rosetta Stone give us clues to understanding our current, often confusing, languages and culture. I say this only half-jokingly because that definition does seem to fit pretty nicely, as I will explain. Of course, the three languages from this modern culture that can be deciphered by that Rosetta Stone are spoken everywhere. One language being that of the zombie, or for Satan's duped people. Another, the language of Satan's own, the powers that be, controlled mainstream media, which is quite loud and overbearing and ever-influencing of the zombie. This language is often known as fake news, or maybe it could include even fake history. But that third glorious language that makes it all make sense is the language of God and for his people, the sons of God, that the mainstream media can never really influence. But this supposed confusion about understanding the three languages will all, relatively quickly, bring this unsustainable, basically two-pronged reality to a head. Much like the manual predicted. Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20, King James Version for instance. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. But I can't seem to write anything these days without being compelled to go on diatribes in attempts to connect a bunch of dots for people. I think I'm enticed to do this because I witness so much of the blind trust in that mainstream media language. That leads to the ignorance that is so prevalently out there in our reality. It seriously saddens me to see all of the blind trust, and that ignorance. Some of the ignorance is willful and some not. But whether it is willful ignorance or not, it leads us down a deadly path of destruction. But despite anything that we may believe or anything we may not believe, despite anything that may happen or anything that may not happen in this world, politically, economically, sociologically or personally. Despite everything, one simple and undeniable thing remains. It sits there, gloriously in all of our awareness, and it is undeniable. No matter if we think that this thing that I would call a gift came to us through or by something very real, or whether we believe that it just popped out of nothing, not unlike so many other very important things in our reality that certain worldview holders believe. No matter what, this towering yet undeniable testament stares each and every one of us in the face and can be distilled down to one very basic thing. Morality. This thing called morality, we have the free will to decide about it. Decide if and how it guides our life. Decide either that our morality came from or was endowed to us by a creator or a morality giver, or we can decide to live our life like morality just unexplainably, somehow popped from nothing. But more importantly, we still have the free will to decide if this morality has much, much bigger implications to us as human beings. If this morality exists, then why? Why does it exist? Wouldn't it speak to what we would call good and evil? That there is what we could call morality and then what we could call a breach of morality. As an aside, I find it interesting that many materialist atheists tend to claim that it is religious types that cause all of the problems in the world. Aren't these problems a materialist atheist's own sense of morality? They can't even deny it. Where do they even get this sense of morality? Or why would it even mean anything to them? But if this undeniable sense of good and evil exists along with our undeniable sense that something in this world is not right, then what does that mean? Wouldn't this fact that something is not right in our reality imply then that something in this reality could or even should be made right? This is where Jesus enters into the story of our reality. This is the place where Jesus can make it right. Right, in that place that ultimately matters, in that place where we can use our free will to embrace our Creator and His created potential for us. A place where this undeniable morality makes logical sense. A place where life has real purpose. Morality's very existence is so undeniable. Even the most hardcore materialist or atheist doesn't feel comfortable perching themselves on an amoral, Nietzsche-like worldview perch. The one that would say something like, to the strongest humans, to the ones that are the least controlled by foundational or objective morals or morality, goes the victory of everything. The evolutionary victory of being the strongest king of the hill, the top dog, the godless supreme ruler of all mortals, this to the lesser, weaker mortals' own detriment. After all, in this worldview, there is no basis for morality. What does this non-erasable trait called morality or a human's moral code say about us? Why is it undeniable? Why is morality there, whether we want to give credence to its origins or not? And it, more than likely, didn't come from evolving morals, or even some kind of subjective social contract that somehow increased a species' chance of survival by, decreasing its chance of survival. This in an eat or be eaten world? I never have heard of, or know of, or can even logically fathom an evolving species, predator who was convinced by the reasoning of a species that is evolving into a Homo sapien species to not eat or destroy him as prey because of an evolving sense of morality. I suppose that somebody might try and make the case that the poop, what I call the powers that be, or TPTB, my own idea of speaking truth to power, because gloriously, poop stands for the powers over old perverters. But can one make a case that the poop are doing just that kind of godless thing by eating or killing their prey, that very thing with their attempts at evolving dumbed-down, blue, pill-munching, propaganda-swilling man into modern zombies and transitioning them against their free will towards becoming the transhuman or the post-human man? But this kind of concept of evolution would track much more tightly to a biblical narrative than it does to a scientific evolutionary narrative. It is conforming more with the narrative of man thinking that he can become like God. This is much like the narrative found in Genesis chapter 3 that seems to explain our entire moral reality. This explains the reason for morality's very existence much better than evolutionary science can, which has no foundation at all for explaining our moral world. So to reiterate, this evil, this breach of morality, what exactly is it up to? How does this affect our lives, both personally and corporately or sociologically? Does it have something to do with stealing away our created destiny? Oh, if there were only some kind of manual to explain it for us that we might want to keep handy. LOL.